Hey everybody, welcome to Badge Banter, where we feature some incredible stories about the importance of an organization's ID badging process and how badges can help people better recognize and connect with one another. We are always lucky to have some really incredible guests from the security industry join us and talk about some really great topics, and today is no exception. Today, please help me welcome Rohin Parker from Spintly. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Hi, Lindsay. It's a pleasure being on your show. I've been watching your episodes. They're really exciting. Really love you guys, the way you have projected your company as a exciting company. So always love to chat with your folks.
Well, thanks. We feel the same about you guys. For our listeners who don't know Spintly, can you tell us a little bit about Spintly and what it is that y'all do?
Yeah, Spintly is a access control technology company. We focus on building access control technology in readers and in the backend wireless space. Right. So my background has been in wireless communication. So we really focus on simplifying how access control systems have been deployed. So we develop wireless readers which can do different types of credentials, whether it's card credentials, mobile credentials, QR code credentials, and provide software APIs and SDKs which can integrate with your software systems.
Which is how we got to know each other, which has been fun getting to build some partnerships between our organizations. So what I love a little bit about your story and about Spintly is kind of like you personally and your personal story of how you started the company. So can you share a little bit about what inspired you to start Spintly and how you did that?
Yeah, it was pretty accidental. I'm not from the access control industry. I used to work in Broadcom, Nokia, Motorola, doing wireless technology stuff, right? I moved back to India in 2018, and that's when I got together with my friend and co-founder Malcolm D'Souza and said, hey, let's start something. And we started visiting buildings, trying to find out problems in buildings. Our focus was IoT. We wanted to do something in the IoT space. Like smart lighting was our first target. Let's do smart lights which can be controlled from the phone, and you can manage them remotely and all that stuff. And happened to enter a building automation room where we saw like a wall full of panels, access control panels. They turned out to be access control panels, and we started asking, hey, what are these things? And they told us these things connect to readers back there, and this open the door, you swipe a badge. I'm like, okay, this is too much of hardware. I come from the wireless space, so how can this? So we kind of saw an opportunity there where we can solve a problem. We could eliminate the panels. We can only have wireless readers talking to each other or a mesh. So ideas started flowing, and that's what resulted in Spintly, pretty much.
Awesome. I think that's cool. I like when people start a company in the industry and come at it from a non-industry perspective, because I think that it gives you like a fresh outlook. You didn't say, hey, I've been in the security industry my whole career and I thought let's do something a little bit differently. Instead, you kind of came at the security industry from a totally non-security approach, which I always think is cool. Of course, you also mentioned India. So I'm always very intrigued about like the U.S. market versus other markets. We are really just predominantly doing business in the U.S. today, but a lot of our listeners and audience are from all over. In your opinion, like what are some of the biggest differences between the U.S. market and then the market in India? I mean, I'm sure there are many, but just pick a few.
Yeah, there's so many differences. I mean, broadly you can categorize them as business-related differences or technology-related differences and cultural differences, right? They're both. So from business point of view, US is a more mature market. The channel is very well developed. Everything happens to the channel. And India is, the channel is fairly new. It's much more open to changes, open to ideas, whereas US is very rigid, right? It's because of the industry itself has been rigid, right? So to push a new concept becomes a bit difficult, and that was probably a blessing in disguise for us, where we were able to push like a completely new approach for access control in India. An analogy is like India is way ahead in digital payments today. Nobody uses cash. Everybody uses just phones and QR codes to make payments, whereas US still uses credit cards, right? And that's how the difference is. So you can leapfrog technologies in India. You can just jump few things and just say, hey, this is a new technology, just adopt it. So adoption is much faster. But the flip side is India is a price sensitive market. So everything comes down to how much it's going to cost me. Whereas US is like, hey, you give me value, it's great, I will pay you, right? Everybody pays you for the service. Whereas in India, it's like, no, I'm not going to pay you subscription. So it's a very difficult market. At the same time, it's a big opportunity.
That's so interesting. We are slow over here in the U.S. Think about how long it took us to even like adopt like chip payments in our cards. We were like years behind Europe. So I always think about it as it relates to credentials because I watched the rest of the world adopt more secure credentials way faster than the U.S. But it's true of all technologies, it sounds like. So that's definitely cool. You guys have a very unique perspective, and that's what I think is fun about working with you, is you've got multiple viewpoints and, of course, non-security industry experience that you bring to the partnership. But when you look at the security industry specifically, what technologies do you feel like are being introduced or are really rapidly evolving that you think will have the biggest impact on access control solutions moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, it's constantly evolving. I'll focus on like the core technologies first, which I think are going to have an impact. I think it's everything about user experience versus security, right? It's about flexibility and convenience. People want flexibility but don't want to compromise on security. So people want to walk through the doors just like that, but are worried about people, unauthorized people entering in. So what are the technologies, right? Biometric is something which has been around, but not fairly adopted in US, but in countries like Asia or India, it's adopted at a very high rate, right, where facial recognition systems are used. I think how can you make facial recognition very less invasive in terms of privacy? You know, if you can solve that, then that could be one big one. Bluetooth 6 is a new technology which is coming out, which allows you to do ranging. So that can allow probably open possibilities where people can have seamless access to doors. Ultra wideband is another key technology which is being developed for accurate distance calculation between phones and readers or locks. It's used by AirTags in Apple. That's how you locate your lost luggage at the airport, right? It's the same technology. So that's another one which may have a good impact on user experience. And finally, I mean, AI, right? So everything is getting layered with AI, whether it's videos, facial recognition, or it's just being able to optimize how a reader would behave when a person walks in, right? That can be made better through AI. So I think long term, I see AI also having a great impact on the overall security industry. But the core technologies which we are focused on are UWB, Bluetooth 6, which are to do with the phone talking to the devices.
Let's talk about Bluetooth for a second because I think that Bluetooth gets a bad rap, and probably unfairly so, or sometimes maybe it's fair. There were some definite Bluetooth things that we tried to implement in the industry back in the beginning, and it wasn't so great. But the technology has evolved, so it isn't like the same thing as it was when people tried to implement Bluetooth credentials, 8-10 years ago. Can you speak a little bit to like the evolution of Bluetooth and how do you overcome, like if you're working with a customer and they're potentially interested in doing something and then you're like, you talk about Bluetooth, are they immediately like, ooh, a little nervous about Bluetooth? Or do you think that people have kind of been like, no, Bluetooth's evolved and they're in a better place about it?
Yeah, I think Bluetooth has its own disadvantages. I wouldn't disagree to it, right? There are certain disadvantages, but it has evolved. You can create an experience as good as or very close to an NFC experience using Bluetooth, using various techniques. Also going down in the stack, you can make it very secure. I think the main problem with Bluetooth has been that the experience hasn't been great for most of the people, right? Either you have to open an app and click on a button, which is pain, or when you bring your phone close to it, it takes a couple of seconds for it to unlock, and people hate that because when you're using a card, you just tap, it opens. It's always the same experience, right? And if that shifts slightly, you don't like it. People get used to a certain way of doing things. You can only get better from there. You cannot go worse from a card. So I think that's where Bluetooth had a barrier where it is not as good as a physical badge, right? And that's where NFC wallet says, hey, we are as good as a badge and an Apple Wallet kind of brings that to the table. But if you can create an experience with Bluetooth, which we have, we can create the similar experience. I think that Bluetooth is a very strong player in the credential market.
So I agree with you, and you're right. I mean, people do want the same experience. Like if I take my card and I present it to a door, like it either works or it doesn't. It isn't like, oh, do you have the app open or whatever that might be. And so our team has been working a lot with your team on developing solutions that are compatible with both physical badges and virtual badges, which we can issue obviously through our products. And really, one of the things that we've always wanted to accomplish, I talk a lot about my opinions on physical badges and mobile credentials, and I think that there's a place for both. But we've developed virtual badges that utilize QR technology, and to me, one of the biggest hurdles with mobile credentials is price. And price point and replacement of existing infrastructure and the costs associated with that, but also the ongoing costs of the fees for that, for maintaining those mobile credentials. But we've developed virtual badge with QR barcode capabilities. The problem with QR goes back to what you touched on at the beginning, where you're kind of talking about security versus convenience. And so while quite convenient, QR is not necessarily so secure. So our team has really been working on brainstorming ideas around, encrypted QR barcodes and how to better utilize that as maybe a more affordable credential option moving forward. What are your thoughts on QR, encrypted QR technology, and where do you see that technology potentially being a player in the space?
Yeah, I mean, we were pleasantly surprised ourselves with how QR codes can be so useful in access control, especially in India. Last quarter, our major business came through QR code devices. I mean, we were surprised, and it's the convenience of being able to have a credential anytime, but also making it secure, right? So it doesn't have to be a compromise. We believe that it has to be best of both worlds, convenience and security. So I think really appreciate your team's feedback on the commitment to make QR codes secure through encryption, and we've always built our readers and devices to make that happen. So every QR code can be secured, even if and it can be dynamic. So you'll have a time window where it can be unsecure, say 15 seconds, right? So it can refresh every 15 seconds, 30 seconds, that's configurable. And it's encrypted, which means no other device can read what's the credential in the QR code. It can read the QR code, but it cannot decrypt the credential. Your credential is what matters, right? That's what goes into the panel, correct? And the credential should not be leaked to anybody. So that needs to be encrypted and then make it dynamic so that it refreshes every time, right? So that you cannot have a replay kind of an attack where somebody's taking a screenshot and sending it over to somebody and, hey, show it and you will be able to get in. You only have like 15 or 30 seconds to do that and it will expire. So, and those are the things we've been really focused on, and I think it's been a great experience with the QR code readers. I think it's a viable option for folks who don't want to have mobile credentials.
Yeah, absolutely. Or do want mobile credentials and they just don't care that it necessarily be NFC. They want to use their phone, that's a sexy story to them, but they just want to be able to use something on their phone. Or they just want to issue a temporary credential to somebody. So I love it. It's been super fun working with you guys. I know our team's really enjoyed it from a technology perspective too, and brainstorming ways that we can use that. At the end of the day, I think that coming up with something that's affordable, which is really what we're designing here, is something that's a cost-effective solution for customers and still keeping the security element is a really cool and unique thing.
Yeah, I think the use cases are so immense, like schools, universities, students, right? They can be using their access badge because they have to show their access badge digitally when they enter a library or wherever they go, right? Or say a cafeteria. And they could be showing the badge and also showing the QR to authenticate themselves. So it's kind of a neat use case, right?
Yep. Absolutely. So, I got to ask you my question that I ask pretty much everybody. Do you have thoughts and opinions on the physical badge versus mobile credential debate? Do you think it's like an either or, meaning one solution is going to ultimately win? Or is this more of an and discussion where you see kind of like a hybrid model that's more likely to be the winner?
I think it's an hybrid model. I think the physical badge, when you are in a corporate setting or any setting for that matter, right, having that badge when you're walking around shows that you belong to that organization, or like ISC West. Let's take an example. Right? Thousands
Yeah.
of people walking around in ISC West. Every time I hear ISC West is not going digital, but that's not the point, right? There are guards at the door who are making sure they can see the badge. So there is huge value in having authentication on your neck. But when it comes to access, it doesn't have to be tied to your badge, is what my opinion is, right? Like there should be a loose connection between the badge and your access. Now the organization needs to decide how to let people into the doors, whether they want digital means or they want the badge to have the credential inside the badge, right? I think that's where I would be open for a debate. We say, hey, a digital credential is more secure than a physical card credential because of various reasons like procs and all those kind of discussions,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
So I think we can go down that path, but I think both can coexist. I think they have each advantages, disadvantages of both ways, where a phone credential cannot be physically seen unless you open the app and show your guard, hey, I have the credential in my phone, and which is painful because you would rather have it in your neck when you walk around, right?
To visually identify, for sure. I mean, there's definitely benefits to both. And honestly, like having both options is kind of about meeting customers where they are and not necessarily forcing them down the path that you think is right for the customer, but instead, like they may be at a place where physical badges are perfectly fine and it's also a credential that opens a door, or they may want to move into something else in the future.
Yeah.
So really, I think the hybrid model is more about what's best for the customer, not necessarily.
Yeah, I have one example I can give. Say, for example, you have a high security room, server room, right, where you only want certain people to go. And what if I was able to say at the door level or reader level, say, no physical badges allowed, only digital badges allowed on this particular door, but on all the other doors you can tap your card, walk in, no problem. But this particular server room, I just want digital credential because I'm worried about somebody sharing their badges with somebody and they walking in, right? So that's kind of a use case where I see that you can have physical badges, but on certain high security areas you can enforce digital badges and disable card reader. And
Yep.
that's something which we always tell our enterprise customers.
Build a scenario that makes the most sense for your workflow. I like it. Well, awesome. Well, these have been fun questions. I've enjoyed it for sure. Thank you for sharing some of your insight with us. One of my favorite segments of Badge Banter is our new section called Badge Blitz. So we're going to do that here today. And I know that I did not send you these questions in advance because if I had, that wouldn't make it fun. But I am going to use this timer for 60 seconds. We are going to set the clock, and I'm going to ask you as many of these questions as we can. Remember, with Badge Blitz, this is like your gut reaction. You don't have to overthink it. Like, these are supposed to be fun.
Are these short answers or long answers?
One sentence or less answers
Okay.
for each of these questions. You ready?
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Let's see.
Go time. Let's do it. What is a current industry practice or outdated technology that drives you crazy?
Yeah, running wires from readers back to a server room for access control.
All right. If you didn't work in the security industry, what would you do for a living?
I would have been continued working building wireless technologies at, say, Broadcom or Qualcomm, one of these companies.
All right. If you could have any superpower, what would it be?
If I had a superpower, I would freeze the age of my kids and just let them be kids forever.
Oh, I love that. If you had to give a TED Talk tomorrow, what topic would you choose to talk about?
Would be what can we do to remove poverty from the world and make everybody happy?
Oh, love it. Well, we didn't get to all of my questions, but you did a great job in Badge Blitz, and that would be a really great goal to remove that in all the world and make everybody happy. If you have a strategy for that, I'm sure people would love to hear that because that would be kind of a miracle. But thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lot of fun chatting with you. I always love when we get to connect, and I really, really appreciate you sharing your insights with us.
I really appreciate you bringing me on. Really loved our conversation and looking for the partnership ahead with us. With your company.
Absolutely, me too. And for everybody else, we hope you join us next time as we take you beyond the badge.